views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Stand up and live your life. Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Hands up high.
Welcome to the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Peroni.
And I'm Heidi Mancini, and we want to thank Jay Jung from City Athletic Club for sponsoring and partnering with our show. So we help advertise for City Athletic, and they also help us so we can stay on the air and offer some good material and some live stuff and guests. We're going to have a lot of cool guests coming up in the next few months, so that'll be interesting. And I want to mention that I'm a hairstylist over at Body Spa on West Charleston, and I do color. I take care of women, men, children, hair extensions. I'm also a wellness coach at City Athletic Club, so I'm a personal trainer over there. So if you need my services for your hair or your body and diet, I kind of do everything. I also have a workshop coming up next month from the Butterfly Effect that we did back in December, and I haven't been able to put together anything up until recently. So coming in February, probably after Valentine's Day, will be another workshop, and that's going to be on self-esteem building and beliefs, and trying to identify with what's real and what's not. And of course, everything always ties into a lot of what we do here. And then Joe, he's a marriage and family counselor officially. He passed his boards a few weeks ago. We got notification, so he's officially official. So if you need a marriage and family counselor, you can call him for that. Also, he's a personal trainer at City Athletic Gym also. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I don't want to brag about
we're
myself.
and also too, we're always looking for partners with our show. We can help you build your businesses or your service or product by doing the social media to help advertise, because social media is the way to go now. Businesses to advertise in papers, newspapers, magazines is really going to become obsolete at some point. So if you're not on the internet, TV, doing your type of social media that way, you're kind of behind the ball a little bit. So we could help you, get your product out there for more exposure, and then also you help us by helping us stay on the air, so we can keep bringing good people and products and information to you guys.
So this week, I was talking to Heidi about this, of what kind of show we want to do this week. I had a bunch of things on my mind. And one of the things is that I finally passed the National Marriage and Family Therapy exam. And so my thought was, okay, I had to go through a lot of hoops to do this, as does everybody. But one of the interesting things is that I thought of is, as a man trying to do this, about 80% of the people in the counseling profession are women. So it's a very feminized profession, let's say, and it's been interesting. So I got a chance to learn a lot, but now that I've passed the test, I don't have to jump through hoops to satisfy other people. Mm-hmm. I can actually start using the other parts of my brain and doing the things that I kind of want to do. And I was thinking about this as a topic for today of, can you actually trust your feelings? And is our feelings the correct barometer to use in your life? One of the things I was noticing throughout all this time of doing therapy and being around a lot of women, it seems like a lot of it is the validation of people's feelings and emotions, which of course is extremely important. Mm-hmm. But what I was thinking is, if that's all you do, and it's just this constant, let's talk about feelings, then let's talk about the feelings that you felt and how you're going to feel about them later. Let's write down the feelings. Let's do all this, but there's no real move to action. Mm-hmm. How do people feel better? So I was thinking about this and going, well, we have all these professionals, but yet we're very much acting like Oprah and these types of things that you see on TV, or these self-help gurus who are they're not professionals.
Well, and the other thing is they have a climate now that it's all about making people feel good by saying, telling them, you can do it, you're great, you can make this happen, that kind of thing. And they already have studies that show that doesn't make you be. I've been reading this resilience book that I started to get back into again, and they basically touch on that too, about self-esteem is built by actions, and that we all have periods in our life where you could be going full steam ahead, and then something happens that gets thrown in the way, that you kind of question yourself and your self-esteem. If your business is going down, or you're not keeping clientele type of thing. I know for me, I put value on myself by how booked my book looks. So
Right.
when I start seeing bare spots in my book, I'm not as busy. I start to get a little, it affects my self-esteem a little bit. And then I go, well, I guess what do you got to do about that? You got to go into action. You have to go and start getting the clients. You have to start doing things maybe a little bit differently to attract clientele, and just set things in motion. I don't have any control over, how other people feel about me, but we do put the feelings into it, and vice versa. I could feel bad about, or use the feeling I feel bad about the fact that I'm not busy, but it's a feeling that I feel because it affects me, my worth
Right.
as a person. But that's how I've been, raised. There's a belief system there for me that if you're not busy and you're not making money and you're not being productive, then you're kind of a loser. So, but I know plenty of people that don't work, and I know plenty of people that are okay just to chill out and relax, and they're perfectly fine with it.
Right,
So
they
their
have a different
belief
belief
system is
system.
totally different. So, and I look at them and I go, wow, that, okay, if you can, do that.
So I'm the type that I want to, obviously, a more masculine version would be to fix a problem. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So it's not just talking about why you feel bad, it's to actually start moving in the correct direction. For example, in one of the classes I had, we have groups at the University of Phoenix, right? So we have like 4 or 5 groups of 4, let's say. And one of the assignments is to take a look at family systems therapy. And one person in each group was given the job of finding the negatives of family systems therapy. And every group member basically said this. They said, research finds that we need to use more research because we can't really find anything negative that's convincing, that type of thing. And it was just a basic thing. It was just a 1 or 2 words, 2 sentences that people would use, and they would get their 10 out of 10 for the class. So I went up there, and I was one of the very few men in the class. And my thing is, okay, if you're going to give me an assignment, I'm going to do it. And I'm really going to look at the pros and cons. So I went up there and I started, and I said, listen, if you're going to bring a whole family into therapy, let's start to take a look at this. At this day and age, it's very difficult to get a whole family to sit down and eat dinner together once or twice a week. So how do we expect people to actually go to therapy and have the mother, the father, maybe a grandparent, and all the children? Iffy at best. So let's just say that would be the first negative. The next negative I came up with is, does an adult, and especially a man, want to talk about his sex life in front of his kids? Because as we all know, let's be honest and real here, the 2 major problems in relationships are sex and money. So what man wants to talk about how, because life gets in the way, he's feeling a little bad, that he can't get it up like he used to, or whatever? No man is going to do that in front of his family. It's just not going to happen. Or if there's an income problem, you're not making enough money, you don't know if you have good opportunities to make more money, why would you say that in front of very young children to make them even more unsafe and feel more unprotected? So I was in the middle of this. I had a list of like 10. I was on the 3rd one. The teacher looks at me, waves me off, and says, you're done. I said, what, did I either did really good or really bad? She said, I don't think you understand the assignment. You're putting down therapy. I said, no, you asked me to find some of the negatives in this particular style of therapy. She said, basically, be that as it may, take a seat, you're done. Everybody in the class got a 10, except for me, and I got a 7 in that class, in that assignment. Now, I'm looking at it going, hold it. I was actually the only person there that was trying to be better. Because if it's there, we might as well try to make it better. What's wrong with that? So that's just one of the things. And then when I went for my first real job interview, I thought, wow, this is really interesting because I worked for myself for almost 30 years. It's really hard to go for an interview. At the end of the interview, I just kind of casually said, well, how did I do? She said, oh, no, you were hired even before you came here. Well, how did that happen? She said, well, we called you in because we went through psychology today and we saw that you were a man. I'm like, well, that's great. I thought, I might have had some qualities that,
Right.
might be very good for the company. But no, it turns out that I'm a man.
Oh, man.
So
They have to hit a quota.
yeah, and there was another time when I went for an interview, and it was on like the third interview. She calls me in and says, you don't have the type of masculinity that we're looking for. And I was like, well, what kind would that be? The feminine kind? It made no sense. And to me, it's very, very interesting about people who are supposed to be honestly trained and paid not to be judgmental. They're extremely judgmental when there's some masculinity in the room. And it's not a male against female. It's that I'm just trying to say that I am so happy to be here, that I have done and jumped over all the hoops and everything that I had to do to be in this position to where I can actually use my full talents. Because, and as we'll talk through this, part of trauma when you're a young child is that you're trying to manage other people's emotions, so you're not who you really want to be, right? So you're diminishing who you are to make everybody else around you feel good. And that is the essence of trauma, where you're trying to manage everybody else's emotions. Well, try to do that in school for a bunch of years, where you can't be who you are. The answer is, it's like, what's 2 + 2? Well, I might think it's 4, but the real answer is whatever you want it to be. That's what I'll tell you the answer, because I had to graduate. And it's just so liberating to finally be on an equal ground that I can actually use my brain. It's just so cool.
Well, and I think too, with a lot of the counseling things that they use for people, I've looked in some of your books and read some of the diagnoses and things, and I think that, if I'm not putting down the profession in any way, because I don't have a master's degree, so I can't really say anything about what it actually is, but
you can.
But there's a point when you listen to people, and what we're talking about today about is your feelings and your beliefs. So if you are a therapist and you're a helper, and you have not processed through your childhood trauma, and you've not processed through your faulty belief systems, whatever those might be, you're out there and you could be potentially really not you. I'm saying therapist, potentially really not helping a person, because the first minute that you project your belief into something, or I've had it happen to me where the sexual molestation part of it, and you could tell right away the therapist had an incident with that, because you could tell. They just did.
That happens.
Or you have the religious therapists that say, oh my God, you're an abomination because you're gay. We have to change you. Well, wait a minute. Right there, that's their belief system. That's something they were raised to believe, and maybe they weren't raised to believe it. Maybe they had circumstances in their lives that they decided that was the right way to think through religion or whatever it was. But the fact of the matter is it's your belief system, and it's your feeling about what you think is true to you. And when you're counseling people, I think that even though a manual might say, like you said, that systems about getting the family together, I think if you have common sense with a situation like that, whether you have a master's degree or not, common sense should kick in and say, but this isn't going to be conducive to everybody in the family because of the children with the trauma. And of course, then you've got adults that are not functioning, at 100% where they should be.
Yeah, and what you said is awesome. It makes me think too about, let's say there is trauma in the family. Let's say the father is verbally or physically abusive to somebody in the family. Do you really think a child is going to say that to a therapist with the father in the room? That is not going to happen. And no, my intent is not to hurt anybody who I've gone to school with or worked with, or any of the women I do supervision with. My thing is that this show too here, I think, has been for me probably a better education than actually going to school, because we have met so many incredible, awesome people that have started with nothing and then became really successful. Or you could say it in a way of they were very sad, or, you know, bad things have happened to them and they've become very happy. And what I've noticed is a lot of people who are in business really know what the human condition is better than the average therapist sitting in a room or reading a book. As people would know, as I love Friedrich Nietzsche. Most therapists don't know who Nietzsche is, but that's the whole nother story. But Nietzsche talks about, and he rails against, what's called the bloodless scholar. And a bloodless scholar is one who can read a book but has not spent any time actually working out all of the things that they're talking about. Somebody like a business person, such as yourself and many others, that, I mean, I could just rattle them off. Frank Scandora is one.
But to not change that thing, that what you said is when you're out there and you're doing it, like one of the things that I've had to check myself on is when you say these faulty belief things, because there are certain things that tweak me in a conversation. And I've had to learn, because it is my livelihood and it is a friendship, or there is something that I have to risk there, that I've had to back up and say, okay, you just got tweaked. I could feel it. Like, you know, when we project, we feel it inside, and I go, okay, why am I feeling this way? Okay, I know. But this is not my experience. This is this particular person's experience that they're having. So then you have to just be quiet and listen. And most times when people talk, they can actually talk through a situation themselves if they're asked the right questions. And I think, you know, that the whole belief thing is, if you got some, and I think all therapists and anybody that's out there helping people, they do it because they truly want to help people. I don't think anybody becomes a therapist because it's all about the money or whatever, because I haven't seen a therapist yet that's rich, but that's another day. But I'm just saying, it's one of those professions that they get into it because they want to help other people because of maybe something that happened to them. My concern always is that's great, but have you processed through your stuff so that you're adequate to be able to really sit across from somebody and help them and guide them, or at least give them the right questions, because you're not supposed to tell a client what to do. I mean, that's what I've been told. I've been told I'm not allowed to tell somebody what to do, because again, that's my opinion, it's my belief, it's my judgment. You know, so they process this thing, and again, it comes down to movement. It comes down to, you know, you can talk to somebody all day long and you can say, listen, the situation's the same, it hasn't changed in a year. You know, what could you do to make it different? You have to do something. You have to physically do something.
Right.
And it might mean, you know, leave the relationship. It might mean leaving that job that you just can't, you're just dragging your ass into every day. But you can't make a change if you don't move. I mean, you could talk about it all day long, but it's not going to, you know, and that's what self-esteem is based off of too. And I think people that go to counseling, a lot of times their self-esteem has been beaten down. I know after I went through my divorce, and I went with my daughter, I felt really good. Like, for a long time, I was like, I'm a good hairdresser. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm making money. But when it came to finally making that decision, that what I had to do to really to be the individual I needed to be, it was hard on me, because I couldn't. When things started to get tough and things started to change, it was like, I don't feel that good about myself anymore. This decision that I made, did I do the right thing? But then I started thinking, did I do the right thing for other people? I started to think about my kid, and, you know, was I going to have some karma come back to me because I broke up my marriage, you know, because I wanted the divorce. And I started doing things a little bit differently, and I felt myself getting a little bit questioning my decisions and my judgments, which I'd never done. And in my past, I've always been able to say, this is what I got to do, and this is what I'm going to do. And I would do it, and I would always think it would work out okay. But when I hit that certain point during those years, I mean, you were part of that, but you had your own things you were going through too. And, you know, you kind of start to question yourself. And the point being is, I could have sat in that thought and that feeling forever, or I could have said, you know what, you made the decision, move forward. Now, handle the situation, all the situations that, you know, come at you.
To go back to Nietzsche's thought for a second about bloodless scholars, it does dovetail to what you're talking about. If you're a scholar that has bled, so to speak, you've lived and you've gone through it, you will have some of these answers. Some of the answers are pretty simple, but people don't want to hear. If you've had loss or grief in your life, who hasn't? no amount of talking is going to make it go away, okay? Like, it will always be there. We don't ever forget losing a pet, our son or daughter, a wife, a husband, a father, mother. You never forget that. The thought that you could sit in a room and just talk about the feeling forever and make it just go away, it's okay to get it off your chest. It's actually very positive. It's an excellent thing. But if your goal is to make all the pain go away by talking about it, that's not going to happen. We need to take action. And the action would be whatever that person feels is an appropriate, positive action.
And the action, Joe, doesn't always have to be like moving into something else. It could be, the action part could be look at it. Look at why am I choosing this? Why am I choosing to be unhappy? And I know, like when my dad was sick and he was dying, I can honestly tell you without a doubt that I never had an ounce of guilt. Like I to this day, I don't feel, bad about, that I wasn't available to my dad, but I felt sad for a long time. And when I finally looked at why I felt sad, I said, well, why are you feeling so sad? I mean, what do you have to feel guilty about? What do you feel? I felt sad when I finally came to the conclusion that I felt sad that my dad wasn't going to be around to watch me raise my daughter. He wasn't going to be able to see me be who I was going to be. That's what the sadness was. It was, in a way, because the way my dad died, it was a relief that he died because he had cancer and he was sick for a long time. But there was resolution there when he finally passed. I was like, oh, thank God this guy's not gonna, my dad doesn't have to go through this anymore. But I went through a period where I didn't think I could get out of the grief part of it. I was like, I can't function like this. I've got a child to raise. I'm still married. I have a life. And when I finally I sat one day and I go, why are you so sad? Because my dad was amazing, man. Mm-hmm. He was a good dad. I was sad because he wasn't going to be around. So I go, well, I still have to live. I still have a child to raise. I still have to be functioning. So once I identified the feeling, I was able to go, okay, but I still can't change anything. But I had to process it in my mind to say, do I feel bad because I feel guilt? So I feel bad because maybe my dad got the treatment he got when he was sick wasn't the best, and maybe I could have done something about that. Or, those are the things when people say move and make action. It doesn't always mean that, well, if I step away from this situation, I just go over here to this new job and the feeling part of it, because I won't feel so bad because I'm over here now. You're probably going to feel the same, if not worse, because all you did was you moved the feeling or the belief from this spot over to this spot instead of working through it. So, then it comes down to, a lot of people spend a lot of their lives not having good self-esteem and not knowing.
Right, because they sit in the negativity. And part of this is, the question would be, can you trust your feelings? The idea would be to question them, to put them up against reason, and sit back and analyze. Because I'm not saying that feelings are not important. Feelings are extremely important, but it shouldn't be the first thing that moves you to an action. In basic cognitive behavioral therapy, you would have a thought or a belief, and that would move you to an emotion. In Latin, emotion means to move. So you're supposed to move out of the emotion. You're not supposed to sit in the emotion. So if we just sit there and validate the feeling, the emotion, the feeling, the emotion, but we don't do anything to get any, let's say, post-traumatic growth out of negativity, we just sit there forever. Like, take the person who's had a very tough childhood, or just a parent that you just never get along with. Well, okay, let's say you're 35, you're 40, you're 50 years old now. How does it help to keep talking about how somebody in your family didn't treat you the way you thought you deserved to be treated when you were a young child? So is it okay to have that feeling? Of course it is. We can identify it, and once we identify it, from there we can figure out, okay, because of certain circumstances during childhood made me believe certain things about myself, which leads me to, is it helpful or hurtful to think negatively about myself? Well, then you need to make that choice of what to do after that and change a behavior. So it's okay to look at the feeling, of course, it's very important, but I get a little apprehensive when people come to me and they go, well, I feel this way, so I need to do this. We talked about this on the last show. People tend to believe things that don't necessarily align them with facts. It aligns them with their self-identity. If you believe things that align you with a self-identity, what happens if you have a personality disorder? You know, what happens if you had a tough childhood and you, at the base, your inner core belief believes that you're just not good enough? Everything you do in life, you're going to have a negative feeling. Is it rational or irrational to think like that? And is it okay just to move on your feelings based on that? Well, obviously the answer is no. We need to look at the feeling, and it's like a kite, right? It flies up, there it is. And you look at it and you go, well, that's the only thing I noticed at this time, because feelings are really strong. But follow the string. See where it connects to. Why do I feel like this? Such as, let's just say this did not happen, but it actually happened a long time ago, but Heidi wasn't there. But let's just say it did. So I'm watching TV and a girl says, wow, look at that guy. He's so tall. Why would I be angry at her? Like, it would make no sense. Like, my reaction is so far out of proportion to what she said. First of all, if you said that, you're not saying it to be mean to me. You're just making a statement. That person is tall. But when I was young, if I got made fun of a lot because I was too short, I was told I wouldn't be good at sports, all these things, that triggers myself. Am I allowed to be mean to you or treat you in any other way other than perfect because you said the word tall and it triggers me to my childhood? So I would say, okay, here's the feeling. I feel hurt. I wasn't hurt by you. I was hurt by my belief in me. So I would look at the hurt feeling, tie that back, and go, when have I ever felt like that before? Well, it was when I was a child. I felt very less than. Also as a child, and going through actually all the way through senior high, and it was okay. I knew I was loved. Don't get me wrong. I'm not playing the pity party here. But we lived in an apartment, and things were rough, and we've been evicted before. But that's unusual on Long Island, because Long Island is a very high income areas. They have, it's just a very rich area. Most of the friends I had, big houses, big backyards, garage, swimming pools, some of them. And some of my friends, or let's say acquaintances, you had to just put up with them because they were there. They were in your high school. And some of the guys would be extremely popular. They would come in 11th grade driving a brand new Corvette. While I was walking. So, of course, I had a chip on my shoulder about women who were attracted to guys who had money. But, okay, so if you like nice cars, is that my fault, right? So my feeling would be that, okay, I would need to trace that back and say, yes, it's my fault. I feel sometimes inferior, and I needed to take a look at that myself. And when my self-esteem improved, then my outlook on life improved. Mm-hmm. So feelings, it's kind of like you're in a car and you're looking out through a windshield. Now, if you live in a perfect world, your windshield is totally clean. Mm-hmm. You can see everything perfectly and you know reality. Unfortunately, most people are not like that. We see the world through a very foggy or cracked lens. And so when we see things, we are not seeing reality at all. Right? So then you use your feelings and you go, can I trust my feelings? The answer most of the time under scrutiny is no. We really have to look where they come from. Mm-hmm. One of the guys that really stands out in my mind, I mean, he lives on the water, as did a lot of people at Baldwin Harbor. He had multiple boats, He had like a whole arcade in his house in the basement. All the girls loved to be around him. And I looked and I thought, but I'm a good guy. Why aren't I popular? But
then you can look at somebody like that has all that money and go, well, they could be looking and going, God, I wish my life was easier. And do these real girls really like me, or do they like my stuff? So there's the other part of it, that do they walk around going, yeah, I've got all this stuff, but does anybody really like me? or they just like me because of what I can do for them, or what I have, and that type of stuff. So they have their own sets, and that's kind of that's being insecure too a little bit, and other stuff they can use to hide their insecurities better. That's all.
Well, that's true. But when you're in high school, at least for me, I was not very aware psychologically, right? Like I was like, we're talking about, can you trust your feelings?
Well, no.
My first
and you
feeling was
can't.
anger, outright anger. And if I had the chance to hit him, I would. And on a football field, when I had a chance to knock somebody out, I did. And the thing is, it's like people would say, well, did you like playing football? And it's like, I love playing football, but I don't remember the games as much. I really don't. This sounds sick, but this is why I'm going to tell you of why we're talking about can you trust your feelings, right? Like, go ahead, ask me why I didn't remember the games that much.
Why didn't you remember the games?
Because we practiced way more than we played in games. And when we practiced, because we wore the same uniforms, to me, didn't mean I was on the same team. All the other guys were on the rich team. They were on the team with the parents. I was on the divorced side. They were on the side in the houses. I was in the side with the apartment. They were on the side with the swimming pool and the garage with the weight equipment in it. That, I had none of that. So to me, when I had a chance to take a shot and hit somebody in that school, believe me, I wasn't sitting there going, yay, we're all on the Baldwin Bruins football team. No. It was a chance for Joe Peroni to take a swipe and whack them and show them who really is the boss when you take away all the money. And no, is that healthy? Absolutely not. But I was 17 years old.
Yeah, you didn't know.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I could have gone through life as this really angry person who hates people with money. And in a way, sometimes it really comes down to, I've traced this feeling, okay? Because it's real, and it's okay to look at, but I should not make all decisions based on it, right? Like, I noticed that even with music. I had a discussion with a couple of people this week about Led Zeppelin, right? Now, the thought was, my favorite band's The Who. They said, oh, come on, they don't even compare. Led Zeppelin has sold millions of records. They're like the third highest selling band of all time. Right behind like Elvis Presley, then it goes the Beatles, Elvis Presley, then Led Zeppelin. They're in there. Whatever thing you look at, they're within the top three, top five. My thing is, great, so they appeal to the lowest common denominator. As usual, people who have more than me, like back then, were they better people? Not necessarily, but they got all of the attention because they had more. And so I was very much instilled with this thing of justice. I want to make things even, right? So I was an angry guy. Even to this day, like if you look at, and it seems like such a minor, like who would argue about music, right? It's completely subjective of what you like and what you don't like.
Right.
But I can still feel the child in me. It still triggers me to say, yeah, listen, Led Zeppelin, half of their songs are plagiarized. No, they didn't cover them. And they didn't just do other people's material. I'm talking legitimately plagiarized, where they didn't give credit to anybody. They took all the money, and the people that deserved the money got nothing. So to me, they're horrible human beings, whereas The Who, you can look at, for all the stuff they did, they also wrote 2 rock operas. So how could you compare? One is here, and one is lower than dirt. That's the way I look at it, but that's one of the reasons why I really latched onto The Who, for reasons like that, because they were good for all the right reasons, not just the music. Whereas Led Zeppelin was famous and good for all the bad reasons. They reminded me of all the guys in my high school that were flimsy, that were not what you would call a strong personality. They were kind of wimpy because they had such an easy life, yet they were driving around in the new Corvette. And so that's what I look at when I see Led Zeppelin fans. Yeah. They're praising a band and encouraging a band to make millions of dollars off of cheating people, and they didn't really work to get what they got. They didn't, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when I look at it, does the emotion matter? Sure it does. But let's get mature. I know when I say let's, I mean me, right? Like, why do I have that sense of justice? Things have to be fair. Well, do they? That's not life. So either I can fight it for the rest of my life and be like all upset, or I can just go, people are entitled to like what they like, and that's okay. But I can't just be in that emotion, be angry all the time. So what I do is I go, and then I learn. I learn about myself by thinking about the feelings. So that's really what that's really what feelings are. It gives you clues to your present, but even more so, it gives you clues to your past. So they can be really good. So the next time a situation comes up, you can ask yourself, is this a real feeling from today? Is it true? Is it real? Or am I still reacting off of that little child in me that still feels that I'm getting screwed? And so that, in that sense, I think it's important, but I don't think it's the number one move to act from. In other words, I feel bad, so it's got to be, something you're doing. It could be something you did. You have to look at it. What do you think? I talked a little bit too long there.
Well, I just said I think that your feelings have to match your beliefs to some degree. I mean, you can't. Your feelings, there's something that you've been taught, something that may have even served a person too. Their reaction to certain things. But I know myself too that physically, when I get tweaked by something, it's an old, something that might have been said to me, or that maybe somebody looked at me a certain way, and I was, and even now, and I go, and then, you just, it's what you said, you have to look at it and go, is this really happening now? And if it is happening now, one of the other things that I've learned to do is and not so much here, but in like, professional relationships, like if somebody tweaks me, I'll go, why are they tweaking me? Like, why am I getting, whatever. And then I'll ask the question. I'll even ask the other person.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that? Like, did you mean to, and they'll go, oh no, what I was trying to say was, and then you kind of have a conversation about it, the feeling, and you work through it. But it is obviously, some of the stuff is new. Right. It's a new feeling, and we all know what feeling happy feels. We all know what feeling scared feels like. We all know what feeling sad feels about. But, feelings of jealousy, feeling insecure, those type of feelings, those are usually a belief that we've developed over time about ourselves because of a parent or a teacher or maybe our siblings. You hear all the time, my brother will say that, I had 3 sisters and they were terrible. They used to tell me things about, and we were terrible to my brother. He was the only boy, he was the youngest. So who knows, what, even as sisters, we're supposed to be these loving human beings. What some insecurities that my brother has now because of things we would say about him.
Yeah, well, listen, just
because
he's
him, it's like, dressing him in girls' clothes, things like that, and just, and you look back on that and you go, wow, no wonder my brother
has. I hope he's
has.
not listening.
No, he's not, but he has some. My brother has some. He does have some insecurities and some emotional baggage he carries around, and you go, wow, you ever gonna get over that?
You want to know the answer to that? The honest answer with most of it is that you don't actually get over it. You manage it, and then you learn to work it. Like, there are a lot of things today that aggravate me, and I have this first initial feeling. And on that, I want to read this thing, if you don't mind, because I love the way he said it, and plus, I've always think he was so awesome, and he's talking what we're talking about. Listen, I've got a great book here, by the way. Can you see this from there? Can you read that?
Says, fuck your feelings.
Now, just because it says that, it doesn't mean that 100%. For those out there who are going to get triggered by that, it means kind of what we're talking about now, is that they're important to take a look at, but you shouldn't be 100% guided by them. They need to be looked at. You need to say, okay, is it fact? Because feelings are not fact. They could be, but not always. So here's a little thing I want to read. This is actually by Mr. Rogers. You all remember Mr. Rogers, right? He says, there's no should or should not when it comes to having feelings. They are part of who we are, and their origins are beyond our control. When we can believe that, we may find it easier to make constructive choices about what to do with those feelings. You see the point?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you're going to feel things because, let's face it, between your birth and to 3 years old, we call that child amnesia. There are a lot of things that have happened in that time frame that would create anxiety, that would create that maybe, say, somebody does not feel that they're worthy. In other words, you need your diaper changed or you're crying, and you just had to have unfortunate parents who read the wrong books, and they thought it was okay to let the baby cry. Because they think, there used to be a theory out there saying that babies are crying because they're trying to manipulate their parents.
Well, or the other one, let them cry because it makes their lungs work better. The more they breathe in the air, their lungs will be better for it. And it's like, okay, if you say so.
Yeah, so what they found out is that does not do any of that. What it does is it creates an attachment injury. Even before the child is even able to speak, they've already been emotionally injured to a point where it's already downloaded into their psyche because it's life or death for a child. If I'm hungry and I'm crying and you don't feed me, my survival is on the line. My amygdala gets buried, which is the fear center of the brain, which it doesn't shrink. It just stays there or continues to get buried because I'm sure the parents don't get any better, right? If you've been through a divorce, you can rest assured that your stress level has been downloaded into the kid's brain, and when you have a child who's 8 years old is already feeling anxiety and stress, I just answered your question, how can an 8-year-old have anxiety and stress? Because the mother and father together creates safety and comfort for a child, and with the separation of that, guess what? They feel like their life might be over. So now they start changing who they are. Some of them change into perfectionists to try to be one less problem that the parents have. So now you've downloaded into the thought of, I can't be who I need to be in this relationship.
Well, and the other thing is kids identify with their parents a lot too, and whatever that structure is, because even in my divorce, my daughter, even though it was good in the long run of things, it was bad because she even though that was dysfunctional, that was what she was used to being around.
Right.
So even though it was for the best, she went through her issues after the divorce too, her rebellion and all that too, because again, even though it was potentially a better situation, as a kid they don't see that. They see, I know my parents are screwed up and they don't get along, but I'm comfortable because they've learned, like you just said,
Right.
they learn survival mechanisms inside that unit. When the parents start fighting, they find ways to deal with it, or go in the room, or go get a
Yep.
book, or come out and let's play some music, let's whatever. So kids, that's exactly what happens. They learn how to fit in to whatever, and they don't know as kids if this is good or bad. And when I talk to girls, I talk to women all the time, I say, listen, when you are in a relationship, I don't care if it's with a girl, a guy, I don't care, it doesn't matter, and you fight all the time, and you show these behaviors to your daughter or your son, you are teaching them. They subconsciously, you're already modeling what they're going to be okay with, or what they're going to be
Absolutely.
accepting. So if they see a man, they see their mom crying all the time because they're not happy because of the father, and it doesn't always have to be, or the mother, it could be vice versa. The guy might not be happy. He never comes home at night. He's never there. He's just not happy. The boy sees this. They think it's normal. Well, I don't have to be around to be cared for, or so it already sets the groundwork for
Yes, and
the future.
once see, childhood trauma is an interesting thing, because if you ask somebody if they've had childhood trauma, or what we call complex PTSD, most people can't identify it. And the scary thing is that childhood trauma, emotional trauma, it's at such a young age, and it hurts so bad that you can't even feel it. Think about that. Like, I've heard, like, if somebody goes to shoot you and you can hear it, it means you're still alive, so you need to still fight, right? I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
I've not been through such a thing. But my guess is that it would hurt so bad if you did get shot that you would never feel it. You'd be gone. You just wouldn't even know. And that's what they say about complex trauma as a child. It hurts so bad, and you don't have the words to put it into any type of context, so you don't know the type of pain that you had. I'll give you an example. We have an adult show, so let's talk about this. Today, I was talking about this. There's this 17-year-old boy who was beaten up severely by his boyfriend. And they go back and forth with fighting here and there, but not only was he beaten up, he was raped. So the victim of this during the talk says, you know, it was probably my fault. I made him angry. And then they ended up getting back together. This didn't happen today, okay? So as you follow this situation, he was trying to get back with him, thinking, there's something wrong with me. I made him angry. And thus, there you go with childhood trauma. The reason why I'm talking about this is, can you trust your feeling, right? This guy believes that he said something wrong to make the other guy angry. So he needs to be a better person. And if he was a better person, the other person would not have hit him, would not have raped him. So, okay, so that's the first part. Let's take the kite, follow the string. Okay. He also does not feel loved by his parents because he doesn't want to tell them that he's gay because he feels that he'll be disowned and he won't have a family. So there's a lot of other things, but let me cut to the chase. This is what happens. The love that he has for his parents, he's what we call neurotically naive. My parents love me, they love me, they love me. I have my parents. Look at them, they support me. If you're afraid that they find out who you really are, that they won't love you,
They're not supportive.
guess what? You're naive. They're not loving you. Because love, and I hope you hear this because I know we're long into this already, but love is not a feeling, okay? It's a thing of service. It's what you do for another human being. I don't care what you feel. Feelings means nothing when you say, I love you. It's what are you doing for that person? Do you support that person? Do you love them unconditionally? That's love, right? It's what you do for another human being. It's not saying a word and go, oh yeah, I feel it in here. That's lust. That's different, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So,
didn't think about that a minute. Wait a minute.
so
Yeah.
moving on from that, if you feel that your parents are not going to love you and they're going to throw you out if they know who you really are, but you love them anyway, that means you have learned through trauma, because you need to stay safe, that your love is absolutely unconditional. In other words, you can hate me for who I am, you can hit me if you want, but I love you anyway. I ain't going anywhere, and I'll take the blame. It's my fault. I will be a better son, and I will be a better boyfriend or whatever. That's what happens. Now, who does a type of person like this pick? They pick a person who will love you only conditionally. You will do what I say, and you will do it how I say it, when I say it, and why I say it, and you will do this, and if I hit you, guess what? You deserved it. So what we have is a pure, almost a narcissist, right? In other words, a narcissist will never be with someone who has very good and structured boundaries, because a person who's secure will say no. A narcissist needs to grab something from you. If they can't do that, they'll go on to the next target. So if I see a narcissist and they're with another person, I know that person's a codependent. And what is a codependent? A codependent is a person who loves people unconditionally, but they only love people who love them with many conditions. And why is that? Because when you were a kid, in order for you to be lovable, you had to do the right things. You had to say the right things. You had to maybe fake it. You had to act like, oh, mom's not drunk, Oh, dad's not violent. He loves me anyway, even though he smacked me 50 times. So again, can you trust your feelings? Maybe yes, maybe not. So the title of this book, it doesn't mean that totally. It means that we have to take a real rigorous look at your life and see. And it's not all about Oprah going, I feel that way, so screw it. I'm just going to act. You don't. You have a thought, a belief, and a perception of life. It moves you to an emotion, and then it should move you to a behavior. But if you really want to be healthy, what we do is we create standards. You don't necessarily have to do behaviors off of your emotion. Now, here's the other part that they don't teach you in therapy that I will be allowed to talk about. Because to me, as I said, if you want to be a bloodless scholar, read a book and watch Oprah. and just deal with feelings and just say, yeah, we just move by feelings. We don't do that. A person who has lost a lot of blood in the fights in trying to navigate the human condition are people like people who have been in the military, okay? They know what life is about. Leaders, business owners that put their money on the line, that have maybe gone bankrupt and, and had to start their life over again. We have to deal with, let's say, somebody like Bobby Bowden, who was a college football coach for Florida State. Understand, he was a coach for like 40 years. He has groups of people between 17 and 18 years old in college that were basically from ghettos and disadvantaged backgrounds. For 40 years, he made men out of these people, and their parents could not make men out of them. But he did, and he's not the only one. I'm just naming one because there's a book out there that he wrote. But college football coaches know how to do this, and it's because you give people standards. Sometimes I don't care what your feelings are, okay? I don't care about your emotions. Don't care. There's a job to be done, and you do it. If you search for your top value, your virtues, or if you're married, you look for a vow. That's what you aim to. Don't care what your emotion is. You might think the person down the street loves you a lot, and you might think that they're hot, and you want to cheat. Guess what? That's a feeling, that's emotion. You cheat, I'm going to tell you if you use the behavior, I'm going to tell you what your feeling's going to be.
Oops.
It's going to be really bad. So let's do it the opposite way. Act in the correct way by following your behavior. If you follow the behavior first, and it's a correct behavior, then you track backwards and you say, well, how did that feel? You're going to say, I lived up to my highest standard, I feel good. Even when you lose, you're going to feel good because you at least lived up to your standard. So that's where it's at with that. They don't teach you that in school. Most therapists don't deal with that because they want to play around in emotions all day, and that's how they get paid, to keep making you come back, and nothing ever gets solved. Listen, most people, I would say 99% of people, know the difference between right and wrong. It's that easy. Choose the correct way, and your feeling will become better. I don't care how angry you are. But if you act angry and rude to a person who doesn't deserve it and you lose your job, guess what? It's on you. And that's why people who let their emotions go and they're emotionally reactive have very difficult times in life. You have to be able to know what your emotions and your feelings mean, and you need to know how to react to them in a better way. Actually, the term virtue in Latin comes from virtus, meaning man. So I'm not saying that women can't do that, but the point is back then, the thought was you live to the virtue, being the best human you can, and then let the feelings fall in place. This morning, I was dead tired. I was a feeling. What's my thought? I want to go back to bed. Okay, so let's talk about my feelings all day. I'd still be in bed. But no, my virtues and my values say I get up, I go to work, I service the world, I do the best I can. So what did I do? In 1 minute, got up, boom, out the door I go, and I've been having a good time ever since. So now, if I went with my first feeling, I feel like garbage right now, then I complain, I get to talk about how bad I feel. But no, I led with my behavior, which was get up and take a shower and get to work. That's what I did. And so because of that, I feel good. So we don't have much time. Do you want to finish up?
Well, I was just going to add to the food thing. I want to add with the food choices and that. I don't know why I was thinking about that when you were talking about choices, but that happens a lot too when you're eating incorrectly. When
Right.
you know that your value, or you know what the right choice is, and you go and you do the opposite. I don't know why I was just thinking about that when you were talking, but
That's
I have
important
this
too.
conversation all day long with my girl clients and my hair clients, and I struggle with this myself, and I just had somebody say, oh, that's why I like you so much, because at least you're honest. And I go, listen, you can see I'm honest. I mean, it doesn't, you know what I mean? If you're not doing things a certain way. And I said, so yeah, we know what the right thing to do or the right choice would be. And I always say, if you make the other choice the other way, then be okay with that too.
If you trust your first feeling, you'll never get lean.
Oh,
There's no
I
way
know.
you're going to be
It's
wanting to
like,
eat
oh, I
cake
wanna eat
every
the-
day.
I want the cookies and the. My thing is it's donuts. Like I love donuts. I can't even believe I said that on the air, but that's my thing. And I know when you look at it and you go, oh, and then you walk away and you go, but then you feel good. And then a couple hours later, like, yeah, I didn't succumb to that donut. I was strong.
All right, so let's just to finish this up real quick. So emotional maturity is making the hard decision for the long run. Okay, it's not anything to do with the instant gratification. No matter how much pain you have to go through, no matter how much hoops you have to jump through, all of these things, none of that matters. It's the long game. It's the person who's emotionally mature that can deal with the little ups and downs on the feelings and keep your eye on the prize, because we all want to do well in life. So aim for the thing that's good and do the behavior. Don't worry about the feelings as much. And remember this
And
book.
fuck your feelings anyway. Fuck 'em. We joke. I like that book. And it's
a great
bright
book.
yellow, too. Like, you couldn't miss it.
Yeah. So thanks for watching the Rise Above show. I am Joe Peroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini, and have a great weekend.